They are pretending like Rachel Zegler is the first of them all when she looks like Lord Farquaad in the film.
Every way that Disney changed the story, it changed it for the worse.
The new Disney boss babe, who is Rachel Zegler, the inverse of happy.
So she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
Rachel Zegler, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infantada is the only global solution.
So apparently, according to them and according to the writers of Snow White, women can't even want to be in love anymore.
Now, I'm guessing that she's not married. I'm guessing that she doesn't have kids. The movie is a complete disaster, by the way.
Rachel Zegler, she's an...
Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
And, you know the saying, go woke, get broke, and Disney's going to lose money on this movie. And I believe it only made less than $1 million in China.
They spent $170 million to make the thing, and it had the lowest opening, under $50 million, of any of these live-action Disney remakes that they've ever had.
Or what?
They're leaning into woke. Hardcore.
They're petrified of some kind of backlash.
Nobody wants a movie about true love? What kind of woman do we want out there seeking true love, Eliana? The outrage.
I wanted my money back. It was very disappointing.
What started as a promising Disney revival quickly spiraled into one of the studio's biggest controversies in years. And at the center of it all was Rachel Zegler. The young actress, fresh off her breakout in West Side Story, was handed the iconic role of Snow White. Fans were curious, even hopeful, until she started doing interviews. Instead of honoring the legacy of the 1937 classic, Zegler took a wrecking ball to it. She called the original story weird, outdated, and full of messages she couldn't stand behind, making it sound less like a cherished fairy tale and more like a relic best left in the vault. Those comments didn't just raise eyebrows, they lit the fuse. And the reaction that followed? It didn't just challenge Zegler's image, it sparked a firestorm Disney never saw coming.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird. She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love.
Oh my God.
That one interview was all it took for diehard Disney fans to start backing away. To them, Zegler came off as smug, dismissive. Like she didn't just disagree with the original Snow White, she looked down on the people who loved it. Then things got political. Old posts and fiery clips resurfaced, showing Zegler taking aim at an entire group of voters. Her comments about a former US president weren't just critical, they were blunt, aggressive, and downright alienating. She didn't just disagree with them, she told them to disappear and never know peace. The backlash was immediate. But what Zegler did next? That's when the outrage really exploded, because her attempt to calm the storm only made it worse.
So she came out and took a large dump on half of the country, everyone who voted for Trump.
President Rachel Zegler also posted, F Trump kinds of posts on social media. She also said that she hoped that Trump supporters, quote, never know peace.
But you are not entitled to call for Trump supporters to be harmed. Like, you are actually not entitled to do that. And so let me just remind you, Rachel Zegler, of what the map looks like, just so you can understand when your Disney movie is coming out, how many people you are wishing harm upon. Like, this is America right now. I will love you through these 4 years as best I can. F Donald Trump. Yeah, totally stable thing for her to be posting, wishing harm upon Trump voters, wishing that we have no peace.
And they postponed the release of this thing, Ben, for a year because their star, Rachel Zegler, was so unlikable, told all Trump supporters that they could off, excuse me, but she did. That was just in November. They didn't even know she was going to do that one.
For viewers still on the fence, this was the final push. Many didn't want to support a film fronted by someone they saw as openly hostile toward millions of Americans. Zegler eventually apologized, but the damage was done. Critics tore it apart, calling it hollow and performative, more like damage control than real remorse. And just when things couldn't get more heated, Disney stepped in with a plan to spin the story their way. But instead of fixing things, what they did next only fanned the flames.
And then she came out and she said, I apologize. Like, I went too far, but it wasn't sincere.
Disney promised a bold, modern take on Snow White, but what fans got felt more like a total rewrite than a respectful update. Instead of building on the charm of the 1937 original, they stripped it down. Zegler openly dismissed the classic love story, proudly declaring that this Snow White doesn't need a man. Strong and independent? Great. But to many fans, it felt like the heart of the fairy tale. The warmth, the romance, the magic had been tossed aside like it never mattered. And the deeper people looked into the new plot, the more they realized the love story story wasn't the only thing missing.
Has a major identity crisis.
This is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
The movie is doing catastrophically. They spent $300 million, and it currently has a 2.2 out of 10 rating on IMDb.
I sat through the whole thing. This was really bad. It was extremely leftist on every political dimension: racial politics, sexual politics, class politics, regime politics. Its narrative was cowardly. It was just awful.
It's got extra musical numbers that are incredibly unnecessary that really add to that runtime. And let me go ahead and let you know that they're absolutely atrocious.
Disney deleted Someday My Prince Will Come and made a modernized feminist alternative.
They say all you have to do to make your wish come true is let it echo, 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 echo.
It's awful, generic. Never mind that the lyrics make no sense at all. All you have to do to make your dream come true is let it echo. Is it like on a metaphorical level?
What? The prince? Reduced to a strange, barely there cameo. The evil queen's jealousy? Stripped of its iconic motive? Rewritten as a generic hunger for power? With no mention of Snow White's beauty at all. Beloved songs like Someday My Prince Will Come were scrapped. In their place, new tracks that critics slammed as hollow and preachy. Then came the real jaw-dropper. Zegler publicly called the original prince a stalker, framing the entire 1937 romance as creepy and outdated. For longtime fans, it was like watching the soul of the story being mocked in real time. And just when the backlash was catching fire, even more fuel was about to be thrown on it from Zegler's own past.
Fans accusing Disney of inserting unnecessary feminism into classic fairy tales.
These big bad feminists now are telling us that's ridiculous. How dare you want to meet a handsome prince and be swept off of your feet and live happily ever after? No, you should want to be the prince. You should want to go out and fight the bad guys with a sword.
So no prince or a different kind of prince? I'm sure a lot of people will assume it's a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie. Right. Andrew Burnap, great dude. Yeah. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
Who the hell are you to say all of Andrew's scenes could get cut? Like, who are you?
Oh my God.
Are you Disney? I've read your book, and I have. It's a phenomenal book. You're losing generation of loyal viewers. When you think about Snow White, what is the premise? What is the story?
It's a love story. It's a love story.
It's a dream for a girl to grow up and a man falls in love.
I'm really upset that it's the biggest theme here is that it's anti-men. She called him a stalker.
Just as Disney's promo machine kicked into high gear, it all unraveled again. Old social media posts from Zegler resurfaced, ones where she mocked Trump voters, called them vile, and even said she hoped they'd never know peace. The comments were harsh enough that even critics of Trump raised an eyebrow. For the face of a Disney princess, it was a PR nightmare. Families with wide-ranging political views were now second-guessing the ticket. Disney scrambled. The PR team worked overtime to clean up her image, but Zegler wasn't budging. She doubled down in interviews, saying she was simply standing by her beliefs. But her refusal to walk anything back didn't calm the storm. It poured gasoline on it, because what came next wasn't just outrage. It was a full-blown movement to take the film down.
Can't close your mouth. You just can't be sane, even when you do open your mouth. I think this girl does not deserve a feature-length film, but rather she deserves to be in a padded cell.
Online, people weren't forgiving. She hates half of us, one user posted, and then expects us to pay for her movie? That sentiment caught fire. Social platforms lit up with calls to boycott, and by the time the film hit theaters, the damage was done. The backlash wasn't just loud, it was costly. Then came another controversy, and this one hit the core of the story itself. Peter Dinklage criticized the dwarfs as an outdated stereotype, and Disney panicked. But instead of refining the characters with modern depth, the studio overcorrected. They scrapped the dwarfs entirely. Leaked images showed strange CGI creatures. Rumors swirled about a new band of diverse bandits. Reshoots were rushed to patch the chaos. None of it worked. And the cost of that decision? That's where the hypocrisy really started to show.
Then they got even crazier and they decided that the dwarves in Snow White weren't woke enough, okay?
These are roles made for actors of my stature. I can't go out for the Harrison Ford or the George Clooney roles because that's not for me. Right. And now it's taken away. I don't feel that's right.
Did the dwarfs make it or no?
Well, the CGI dwarfs did. Of course, that goes back to the original controversy where Peter Dinklage, a very talented little person actor, said, why are we doing that? We've hired a Latina actress to be Snow White. That's progressive. But you're going to hire little people to play the dwarfs? That just seems like a step backwards. And then, of course, Disney instantly buckled and said, okay, We're going to add magical creatures.
Critics and fans weren't just upset, they were furious. By trying to be progressive, Disney had erased 7 major roles that could have gone to little person actors. The irony was hard to miss. In their rush to avoid offense, they removed opportunities from the very community they claimed to protect. And with the dwarfs gone, so was the magic. What replaced them felt flat, lifeless placeholders that added nothing to the story. But the real fallout wasn't just online, because when opening weekend hit, the numbers were brutal.
And then they couldn't put dwarfs finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive. You'd think the most progressive thing would be get people jobs, and dwarfs want to work. That many scripts that come down the pike.
No, only 7 of them.
That has, and there's 7 dwarf jobs here, but because I think it was Peter Dinklage said this is, this is not right.
The 7 dwarfs of Snow White, who of course all just disappeared, and now they're the 7 dysfunctional men, I assume.
I mean, I guess, what are we going to have? Like a lesbian, a trans person, someone in a wheelchair, someone of color? Like, I don't understand. Why weren't the dwarfs enough? But apparently they were too offensive because the most famous dwarf of all, Peter Dinklage, said something negative about it back in 2022, thus ruining the biggest acting roles the dwarfs had ever seen since the creation of Willy Wonka's Oompa Loompas back in the 1970s.
They couldn't have dwarves. Do you guys remember?
Yeah,
that?
because Peter Dinklage and all them were talking crap.
So originally they
Do you have
took
a picture of what the dwarves were supposed to look like?
I can find it, but it was an array. It was the DEI of
DEI
dwarves.
dwarves.
Yep. Well, they had to reshoot the film and use CGI dwarves. There you
So
go.
those guys didn't make it.
No.
That guy's 6'2".
And they were like, what? We just want to work. We're dwarves. So, ho ho.
Disney was banking on a $150 million opening, a safe target for a reimagined classic. Instead, Snow White stumbled out of the gate, pulling in just $43 million. A catastrophic start for a film rumored to cost over $200 million. Audiences weren't buying it, literally. Parents said the tone felt off, teens called it cringe, and longtime fans, they felt like the movie trashed everything they once loved. By week 2, theaters were already pulling it. Analysts were calling it one of Disney's worst box office bombs in years, but the financial disaster didn't stop there. Because what happened with the merchandise and behind the scenes at Disney told an even darker story. Online reviewers didn't hold back. One top-rated comment read, "No magic, no heart, just a joyless attempt to fix something that wasn't broken." Another added, "They spent hundreds of millions just to insult their own legacy." Even the merch told the same story. Dolls, wands, and tie-ins sat untouched on shelves, a clear sign that audiences had checked out completely. Behind the scenes, panic set in. Insiders claimed Disney executives were scrambling to explain how such a safe project had gone so wrong. Some blamed Zegler's social media meltdown. Others pointed to a soulless script. Whispers of looming layoffs began to swirl, another blow in a string of costly failures. Meanwhile, Rachel Zegler's future with Disney was on thin ice. Industry insiders started calling her box office poison, warning that studios might steer clear of her in big-budget films. Her talent was never the issue, but her tendency to divide audiences had become a massive liability. And just when it seemed like the studio had hit rock bottom, critics turned their attention to the film's tone and the way it treated the very story it claimed to honor. Some viewers believed the film could have worked if it hadn't been delivered with such open contempt for the original. After all, other modern princess stories, like Frozen, managed to evolve the message while still keeping the heart. But critics said Zegler's Snow White lacked warmth. She didn't feel like a heroine. She felt like a lecture. In interviews, Zegler even joked about scrapping the love story, brushing off old-school romance like it was something to be embarrassed by. That attitude hit a nerve. Fans weren't asking for a damsel in distress. They just wanted a character who still believed in connection, not one who scoffed at it. If Disney had found balance, kept the dwarfs, honored the heart of the story, and simply added new layers, this remake might have had a chance. Instead, it became a message-heavy misfire, overshadowed by its lead's public persona and a script that felt more like a rejection than a reinvention. And now, the big question still lingers. Was this disaster avoidable? Some believe a toned-down Zegler and a smarter PR strategy could have flipped the narrative. Others say the script was too far gone, so far removed from the original's magic that no actress could have saved it. But either way, the damage was already done. At its core, this entire fiasco exposed a massive disconnect between Disney and its audience. Fans don't mind updates, but they want to see beloved stories respected, not gutted. They don't want nostalgia mocked, and they definitely don't want the star of the film telling entire groups of people to stay away. For Disney, this could be the wake-up call it desperately needed. The days of coasting on nostalgia while layering in preachy, heavy-handed messaging might finally be catching up with them. If future remakes are going to work, they'll need more balanced storytelling, and a lead who doesn't alienate the very people they're trying to reach. As for Rachel Zegler, this was a brutal lesson in the cost of being outspoken in the wrong ways. Dismissing classic fairy tales, mocking old-school romance, and calling out potential moviegoers online, that's not exactly a recipe for box office success, and the fallout isn't over. Disney's stock took a hit. Rumors of layoffs are swirling. Projects already in development might get shelved. Even industry insiders are starting to admit the remake era may have finally run out of magic. Snow White 2025 wasn't a reimagining. It became a battleground. A beloved classic was buried under politics, tone-deaf rewrites, and a lead actress more interested in pushing buttons than playing a princess. For many fans, this just confirmed what they feared. Disney has lost its way. So here's the question. Could this have been saved with a different lead? A more faithful script? Or was it doomed the moment Rachel Zegler started tearing down everything people once loved? Let me know what you think and brace yourself, because if this is the new direction for Disney remakes, we might want to lower our expectations even more.